I want to share my lens is through high-level baseball players. Like, that's who I work with. That's who I spend my time with. So I wanted to gear this presentation around what it's like to work with those guys and some specific things that we see with baseball players that may be unique to baseball, but there's definitely some application among all sports. Also heavily influenced by Altus. And for me, jumping into the Altus work in probably 2015, and then just seeing who they were studying, who they were learning stuff from, and I was able to jump down these rabbit holes of, things that they were looking into. And that's kind of how my lens has been biased on the speed side. And I really like this quote. It's every system is perfect for the result it gets. So if you want a different result, put in a different system. So I think about this, if I gain 65 pounds and I eat 3 bratwursts and slug bourbon at night, I think my system's pretty good for getting the result I'm getting. So it's easy to think if I'm getting the perfect result for what I'm doing. So if I'm not liking the result, I need to make an adjustment and change that up. If we have 15 hamstring strains, we might need to look at that system because it's set up perfectly for 15 hamstring strains. So what are we going to do to adjust that? So, and I like to think simple, scalable, sustainable. Like, keep it really simple on the how we're going to implement a system. We have 10, 12 coaches, top to bottom, different cities, different locations. So we need to be able to have something repeatable that we know as players move level to level, that's not an issue for them. It's simple, it's scalable, it's sustainable. I think this is probably my favorite part of the presentation. I think that viewing movement in your coaching eye is probably the most important thing you have as a coach. If I can see movement really well, I can help the hitting coaches. If I can see movement really well, I can help the pitching coaches. If I can see it really well, I can become the eyes for the head athletic trainer. So if I can do that, I now become an asset to everyone around me, and I can assist with a lot of different things. And a great example of this, we had a guy that it was last offseason, he's training, he's sprinting, he feels great. His left heel recovery was lower than his right. And we kind of noticed it and we're like, I don't know. Do we want to clean that up? He feels good. So what we did was we nudged the weakness. We cleaned it up a little bit. We gave him some things, did some trackside inputs, and then we gave him some correctives to work to clean that up. So fast forward 4 months, we're in Cincinnati, and the guy's a little banged up. We're trying to decide if he can play or not. And head athletic trainer comes out there and he's like, hey, what do you see? So in that moment, had I not known that within his normal right now, that left heel recovery was lower than his right, I might have said, yeah, you can't, yeah, look at that. The left heel is lower than the right. Like, he looks like he's not feeling good. The reality was he was able to play, and I think he had a double and a homer. So that impacted the game quite significantly. So being able to use your eye, you now become an asset to the head athletic trainer, to those around you. Next, assessing movement. So we've got our subjective, how we view movement, and then we're going to get some objective information to kind of back that up. So we've got force plates, timing gates, 1080 sprint. We use all these. It just provides nice information to what you feel like you're seeing. And I'll stress it again that I think level 1 is the most important, and then level 2 is going to back that up and give us more information. And then level 3, coaching movement. So for me, I think that one of these 4 drivers of movement is giving us the outcome. So if it's a technical driver, that means for me, it's a more symmetrical pattern. I need to adjust how I'm coaching and how I'm cueing and the constraints I'm giving to be able to change that movement pattern. If it's mechanical or structural, I think of it more as something that's showing up asymmetrically. So left, like I just mentioned, left heel recovery lower than the right. To me, that's a soft tissue intervention thing that I need to clean up, and that will provide corrective exercises and things like that that we want to stay ahead of. Physical, I mean, you can think of that as force, velocity, power, all those things. And then emotional or visual perceptive. And to me, a great example of this, it's not really a sprinting example, but you will have like fear of falling, apprehension and return to play, things like that. But the visual perceptive system, if I have a 96 mile an hour fastball down and away, how I view that versus one up and in, that's the same miles per hour, same pitch, same everything, different location, I'm going to react based on what I see. I'm going to spin off earlier to try to make up time. And so that's a way that that system can affect how our movement plays out. And so this can be applied to sprinting as well. So like I said, I geared this towards baseball guys. You can apply this to your guys as well, and there's going to be certain things that pop up in your sport. And for us, if I was going to give this to a new strength coach in baseball, I would say, okay, these 4 things are probably going to be some trouble areas you might run into with your baseball guys. So foot-ground interaction. Our guys, baseball players, they typically have poor ground contact. They don't get a lot of negative foot speed, and it's almost like the ground just comes up and hits them. They're really passive through the shank. Pelvis sacrum dynamics, are they undulating and oscillating there? A lot of times with it being very geared towards one-way rotation and one-way throwing, we end up getting some restrictions in the SI joints. We end up getting a lack of this undulation and oscillation from time to time. So being aware of that, seeing that in your drills, seeing that at multiple layers within your drills or your warm-ups, I think is important. Thoracic spine, a lot of our guys, we're always chasing rotation. We always want to make sure that they can rotate, and sometimes they don't rotate well, which shows up in their sprinting. Also, as baseball volume picks up, they're hitting more, they're throwing more. A lot of times they'll get stuck into being side bent. So they'll be sprinting and they'll be stuck to one side. And you guys in baseball probably noticed that. They'll be really stuck. You'll see it on their skips, especially skips for height, skips for distance. They'll be really pulled to one direction. And that's just something to be aware of. That's information for us to know, okay, what do I want to give this guy in his corrective work the next day, or what do I need to clean up now? And then shoulder girdle, undulation, oscillation there as well. We'll see winging, we'll see being tugged down on one side, have a lot of lat, pec tightness. So what's showing up in their sprinting based on their unique sport. And for me, I look from the side, I'll look at key landmarks, global positions, and then rear or the front view is extremely valuable for the rotational dynamics and what you're seeing there. And so that's kind of baseline for me, and then being able to understand the rotational stuff is extremely important. So this is kind of just a follow-up foot ground interaction. We want early and high ground reaction forces. We don't want those passive and late. Pelvis and sacrum dynamics, we want that to undulate and oscillate. We need to get anterior, posterior tilt. That needs to function independently, and we need to make sure that those SI joints are functioning really well. Thoracic spine, like I said, guys typically will get stuck into not being able to rotate, or they'll go somewhere else to get the rotation. They'll go to the lumbar spine. You'll see people really cranking around themselves. Side bending, they'll get stuck to one side the more baseball volume picks up. And then shoulder girdle, we kind of talked on this. We want to be able to see undulation, oscillation, and then also, are we seeing any winging? How does that affect what the arms are doing? So a couple different bucketing strategies. We can think air versus ground, and I'm not going to read all this for you guys after. Air versus ground-based, that could be your wides, narrows, that could be your terrestrials, aerials, whatever word you want to put on it or spin you want to put on it. You could kind of tell that as you're watching. You can also, there's various apps and technologies to be able to get that information. Frequency versus length. Is this guy a big frequency guy, or is he super long, staying on the ground a long time? Is he more geared towards the length side of things? And then another way to break it down even further is where in the sprint are they having issues? So we'll have an example of this here in a second. Is it the start, or do they have a poor directional step? Do they have excessive shin roll? Is their heel recovery really high, like they're going straight to frequency early? Those are all things to consider, and that might be your breakdown. Maybe they're not stealing bases, but they're fast. Maybe it's a start issue. Maybe it's a decision issue. There's a lot of factors that are at play, but this just can help you narrow down what you want to address. And I think with our guys, with baseball players a lot, it's the transition, and probably team sports in general, the transition. With the transition being a problem, it's usually one of three things. It's usually the torso, the pelvis, or the shank. And are those moving cohesively together, climbing cohesively together, 5 to 8 degrees roughly? And so there'll be an example here in a minute of this, but you can probably go to one of those three and have a really good starting spot on what you want to address and what you want to clean up. So this is an example of kind of this process in motion. We have Our observation was we had excessive shin roll leading to a touchdown in front of center of mass on the left. So there's a lot of possible drivers this could be: technical, mechanical, physical, or emotional. So what's the possible driver? Our modification was we actually just had a conversation with him, and we showed him the video, and he was able to kind of come up with his own solution to it, which is ideally what we want. Now he has the feel. We don't have to give it to him. He's got his own thoughts around it, his own feel. He created that. So the test, retest, and the outcome, you see decreased shin roll and improved touchdown distance more underneath center of mass. So this was within 3 minutes. It was 3 minutes difference. And so this is an example of how this process can work. If we go to the blending techniques, you guys may have heard blending and skill acquisition and all this. We do a lot with our hitters and pitchers on the blending and skill acquisition side. And what we're really trying to do is how can we take what they do currently and what we want them to do and blend those together? How do we make this new movement or this new sprinting technique that we're implementing, how can we make this show up? And so for us, in the blending, we want to create a proper environment for transfer to occur. Next, we have constraints. We want to let the system organize with minimal cueing. And then stabilization. How do we get that to actually show up? So we start roughly with a 3-to-1 constrained versus unconstrained. So early in the off season, we were super heavy on the technical side. We were teaching a lot. We were coaching a lot. And they actually weren't really getting faster. They looked better, but they weren't really getting faster. So then we transitioned into a 1-to-1 where it's every other rep. And then now we've transitioned, we kind of periodized this over the offseason. Now we've transitioned to a 1-to-3. So 1 rep, they'll work on something, they'll feel something, and then the next 3, they're just going. And what we're going for with that is we've got this new feel and we've got this normal or old feel. And what we're doing is we're, over time, letting those two blend together by alternating these reps. And guys got faster, and what we did actually was we nudged them into into a better technique. So we were able to nudge them versus an overhaul. Because with our guys, with pro-level athletes, I don't want to overhaul these players. What's made them unique, the way they've been doing things for a really long time. I want to nudge that to a more efficient model, though. And then actualize, does it actually show up in real time during a game with different environments and circumstances? So that's where we want this to actually show up. So does it show up in our session? Yes. Does it show up in bases with the base running coach? Yes. Does it show up in spring training games? Yes. Does it show up in a big league game? Okay, perfect. We've got the full carryover because those are all different stimulus for players, and it's a different environment. So this is an example. We're looking at multiple viewpoints of, for us, a technical driver. So obviously there's some compensations in the way he moves. Cervical spine's really pulled to the left on that front view. He's got some kind of unique dynamics with the lower half, kind of global IR. Some arm swings are different. Some unique stuff, but the reality is he's feeling really good. And what we noticed, though, was he doesn't transition well. If you watch that left video, you'll see his head kind of stay along that bar for almost 4 or 5 steps versus this right video where you'll see him climb much more gradually and significantly better than the one on the left. And we actually used some variable loading on this one, the transition, just to continue to give him a feel. So we had heavy early, and then it unloaded as he went with the 1080. And I think that just kind of gave him more reference on the feel that he was going for. So this is a technical driver, and this is also a phase identification if we were going to go that route or think about it that way. His transition was poor. So we actually haven't used the variable loading a ton. So that was actually a little bit of an experiment, and he's like, yeah, it feels great. So we went with it. Okay, this next guy, this is an example of a mechanical driver. And obviously there's going to be some asymmetries that we see visually. But another way to look at it is how can we use the tech to create some data to show us that as well. So this guy on 6 kilos, 9 and 12, he was left 29% lower than the right on his average peak force on the 6 kilo. And then as we transitioned up to the 12, it actually got pretty symmetrical, which I thought was interesting. So this is an example of a way that you can challenge your process in return to play, challenge your process and what you're seeing. And you know, if you wanted to be more on the viewing movement side, you could create kinograms of this and go and compare that to the numbers as well. A new kind of screen that we're using, it's a defensive efficiency screening, and we just want to see baseline and then what our intervention process is going to be, and then an outcome. So you can see this guy, young player, prospect, really bad directional step, really bad pre-pitch, it's extremely high, and you can see he's all over the map. That's not going to be extremely efficient for him getting to a ball to his left or right, either one. Our intervention, we debriefed, we showed him video, he saw it immediately, and then we just did a old-fashioned basketball screen drill. We just stood in the way and had him go around us and not hit us. And that's just a very practical way. We were able to make some changes, create a different environment, communicate with him, and it cleaned up dramatically. You can see on this far right, significantly better. We educated him on the pre-pitch, and his direction is way, way, way better. So he's gonna be way more efficient. And this is a pretty cool thing we've been doing. We've actually been doing this based on time. So the infielders it's 3 different directions each way. So it mimics basically a ball in, a ball to the side, and a ball back on both sides. That's what it's mimicking. And we do that 1 second with our infielders. How much distance can you cover in 1 second? With our outfielders, how much distance can you cover in 2 seconds? And so we want to see which way are you not good at. And a really, really great practical example of this, the other day, we had a guy doing it, and he's like, oh, I'm not as good to my left. Maybe I'll just take a half step towards the line because I'm better to my right. He was a first baseman. And I was like, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Obviously, we want to get that better. And if he knows where he's maybe not as strong at, then that gives him some real world information that he can plug in.